Is it going, people? Welcome to the stream. Hope everyone's had a fantastic... What day is it even today? Wednesday. Hope everyone's doing great, everyone's feeling fantastic. And of course, since it's Wednesday, some more Arsenal stuff. Another day, another stream about Arsenal. And to be honest, wasn't expecting much today. Genuinely wasn't expecting much. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, pretty much stuff fell out of the sky, it feels like. There are some rumors about potential, at least, Edu replacements as sporting director and everything. There are news on Ben White, which is not the best of news. Potential news on another number 6, as well as it sounds. We will talk about some potential transfers, which most likely won't come to life, but ultimately we will discuss them because they are available to us. We could sign them if the right things are happening and if team arguably has any ambition whatsoever. So we can discuss all those things and some few bits and bobs here or there as well. So if you're new around here, of course, don't forget to smash thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell, get live interactive in the chat. Let's discuss, let's talk. If you have something you want to share, you want to talk about regarding Arsenal or whatever, let it down in chat below. We're gonna discuss that, or down in comments below, because I answer pretty much every single comment I get. So ultimately it's international break. Tomorrow everything kicks off for Nations League, and yeah, as I said, I was expecting some slow times in terms of Arsenal, in terms of some updates in any way, shape, or form. Let's be real. I'm gonna be honest with you. But all of a sudden, news starting to fall out of the blue sky, basically like rain out of the blue sky, and that was kind of a shock to me. So basically, we're gonna kick things straight off, and we're gonna talk about first things first about Paul Pogba. Ironically enough, about Paul Pogba, and this is something different one. This is not, we're gonna talk about that Arsenal are linked with him, but the thing is, the Frenchman's waiting to terminate his contract with Juventus before relaunching his career. Since starting January, he can train with Juventus, if he's still there, obviously, and starting March, if I'm not mistaken, he can start actually playing big games, Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, whatever he's gonna play. Up to him, let's put it that way. However, the thing is, apparently Paul Pogba is considering different offers. It comes from MLS, where there have been talks about Inter Miami and other teams, and to be honest, for Inter Miami, improvements for them going into the Club World Cup actually would be kind of nuts. Of course, there's Saudi, because they wanted to get some high profile names and everything, more eyes to that league. Plus they pay handsomely, let's be real. And there are some Premier League teams in England as well looking at this guy. Now, I'm not saying per se that it is Arsenal, but to be honest, arguably he could actually be quite good at Arsenal. If he actually performs, if he gets up to speed, if he actually gets to some sort of a proper form, he actually could be quite good at Arsenal, because Pogba, when he's on top of his form, is fantastic. Let's be real. Still remember, together that midfield with Conte, one is a total disruptor, defensive one is a more creative box-to-box attacking one, and Paul Pogba just genuinely excelled in that role. Still remember 4-4-2, a French squad, Giroud, Griezmann up top, Pogba, Conte midfield. That was just fantastic to watch. But ultimately, I just put this up for you lot just to talk about this fact. Basically, question for you all: would you take Paul Pogba at Arsenal? The thing is, though, obviously it all, I would assume, depends on wages, the wage structure, how much he would want, stuff like that, of course, and what form he actually would hit potentially. So definitely that could be kind of an interesting one if Arsenal actually went for him. But ultimately, again, I'm putting this up to you for a small debate in the chat. Would you take Paul Pogba at Arsenal? Because arguably, I can see him working at Arsenal. Yes, people might say he's old, he's washed and everything, he hasn't played for quite some time. He will need time to pick up the pace, pick up the speed, to everything, pick up form. But ultimately, he actually could do good at Arsenal. As a number 8, he actually would be quite fantastic. The only drawback to all of this is, obviously, he's a big profile name, no matter how you look at it, there is actually some ego coming with that. And obviously, as we all know, Mikel Arteta doesn't like egos, doesn't like players that challenge him. In the team, he wants to keep everything as smooth as possible. He wants basically the whole team be a family, but ultimately, let's be real. In family, there are fights, there are disagreements, there are stuff like that. And having some different type of personalities, that actually would be quite fantastic in this regard, because Pep Guardiola said as well, he doesn't want assistant coach and any type of way, shape, or form, or anyone in the team that consistently agrees with him. He wants someone who throws him a challenge, has different perspective on things, and I think genuinely Paul Pogba at Arsenal could offer us that. But the issue is Arteta doesn't like egos. That is for me the biggest drawback. He wants only yes men. He cannot handle big egos. Let's be real. We saw what happened with Guendouzi, what happened with Paul Pogba, with Aubameyang, and what happened with other players that tried to disagree with him, or they just Arteta didn't take liking to. Let's just put it that way. But ultimately, if you ask me, Paul Pogba arguably is a player that it's worth taking a gamble on, in my opinion. Obviously, depends on wages, depends on wage structure and everything, because let's be real, you could work some clauses in the contract, for example, that he plays, let's just say on 50 grand a week, right? And that's, for example, for half a year, and if he proves himself, he does good, he actually gets up to pace, he actually performs, gets some output and everything, you can improve that contract. Maybe there are some bonuses in that contract to give him an incentive to actually perform better, to try harder and everything. So there's definitely possibilities to work it into contract and actually work it so Arsenal actually get some, arguably get some value out of this at the end of the day. But I would assume so that many Arsenal fans that look at this thing thinks that he's washed, he wouldn't fit in Arsenal. He has played for United and everything. He hasn't played for years. He has a massive ego and everything, and I all get that. I genuinely get that, but at the end of the day, Paul Pogba is available. And if there are offers from England, there's definitely, I think there are some most likely high-end type of teams that are offering something. And if Arsenal are one of those teams, I actually wouldn't be against that. I genuinely wouldn't be against that, as weird as it sounds. So if you have any thoughts on this, let me know down in chat. We're going to slowly move on. But definitely Paul Pogba at Arsenal wouldn't genuinely be the worst. Sorry for it. I accidentally pressed refresh on the page. But where is it? Here is the big one. Ornstein dropped a news bomba today. Apparently, Real Sociedad's director of football, Roberto Olabe, the exit role is in June 2025. Apparently, he has resigned. He has led Real Sociedad's rise, plus player trading development like Isak, Odegaard, Merino, Zubimendi. No job agreed but viewed among best around, so will be in demand. And obviously with Arsenal, having no sporting director at the moment, and it's been said that Arsenal are in no rush to actually sign one, it actually could be a viable option, because Fabrizio Romano reported on this as well, saying that the decision made for Alba, who's going to be replaced by Eric Bretos. His contract runs out since summer. Obviously, he will be very sought after, and for me, on certain level, it screams Arsenal. And you may ask why and everything, mostly because Basque region, Mikel Arteta is from there. He has played for Real Sociedad, there's connection there. We just signed Merino from there, so there's also connection in that regard. So definitely I think there is some merits to this. I don't know too much about the guy. Yes, I follow La Liga. I follow Real Sociedad as well to a certain extent to see how they're doing, because for me it's one of those teams when I remember we talked about they had Isak, when we could have signed him, we didn't obviously, we just signed Merino. Tierney was there on loan last season. Real Sociedad had Griezmann as well. They have had some quite nice ballers there, let's be real, let's be honest with ourselves. And they still have Zubimendi, so potentially that could be also a possibility for Arsenal long term if you come to think of it. But for me, somehow, this screams Arsenal. I don't know. It might be just the fact that he's from Basque region, it's from Real Sociedad, where Mikel Arteta has played and everything. It could be just that. But he's Spanish, Arteta knows him, there's familiarity with that and everything. So definitely he has been one of the main reasons why Real Sociedad have been somewhat successful in the recent times. So I definitely believe there might be some reasoning behind my suspicion in this regard, because ultimately at the moment Edu is replaced by Edu's basically notepad. He's the other guy, so this could be actually working in Arsenal's favor in that regard. And while we're speaking on this, by the way, ultimately we all know that there have been rumors that Man City in January could be targeting Martin Zubimendi. Of course, we tried to go for him last summer, but he said he wants to stay at least for one more year at Real Sociedad, hence why we didn't get him, why Liverpool didn't get him. But now, obviously, January, Man City could be going for him. There are some rumors that it could come to life, that it could come to tuition and everything. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. However, despite all that, Arsenal are still monitoring Martin Zubimendi's situation, in the belief that they can prove the player's most viable destination in the summer. Mikel Arteta wants to add a 6 to his team to ensure they have maximum tactical options. Obviously, Zubimendi is more 6 than an 8. With Partey running out of his contract, there were rumors that Arsenal might try to extend his contract, but there's still nothing more on that. So Partey's contract runs out at the end of this season. Same actually is for Jorginho as well. His contract runs out as well at the end of the season. Personally, I wouldn't extend their contracts because, let's be real, what's done is done. We should get some fresh blood into the team, and Zubimendi actually could be quite nice in that regard. Plus, he has, again, this will be very weird, but he has played together with Merino, he has played together with Martin Odegaard, so definitely there could be some type of connection in those terms as well. And especially if Arsenal sign Obreta, what was his name? The Real Sociedad sporting director we just talked about and discussed a bit, it definitely could come to life because he knows the player, he knows what he wants, what he needs. That sounds weird, and like that song and everything, but it could be something like that. There could be something to it. Genuinely could be something to it. And it doesn't stop there, to be honest, in terms of that. Because it's been also said that after repeated appeals from Sociedad, Zubimendi opted to stay for at least one other season last summer. So he stayed there for one more season, and basically until the end of this season, allegedly. Of course, we don't know what City is going to do in January, but it is nevertheless believed that that was on condition that he would be allowed to leave for the right offer in the future. Arsenal may now be present that. The thing is also, in La Liga, it's pretty much mandatory for every single player to have release clauses. At the moment, I'm not sure what are the release clauses. 50, 60 million euros, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely, Zubimendi could be a viable option for Arsenal in that regard, especially as we just talked about with Partey leaving, running out of contract, Jorginho running out of contract. He definitely could be a viable option. And I would assume that if he plays, Merino would play the left 8 because they have familiarity in those positions. Odegaard has played for Real Sociedad with them together, so definitely there could be some more familiarity in the midfield alone. Potentially, if we sign Zubimendi, there is a possible option, a chance, that if we sign Zubimendi next season, we could have a Real Sociedad midfield. Zubimendi, Merino, and Odegaard. Obviously, the big question is, where does that keep Declan Rice? Because Zubimendi is a 6, and we need an 8. And we all know that Rice is better as a 6 than an 8. Everyone's screaming to play him as a 6 more than an 8 because as an 8, he can't show his full potential, if that makes sense. So there's definitely quite a bit of questions left to answer in that regard. What's going to happen with Declan Rice, because some people say play him at center back, some people say him play at 6, some say he's good at 8. Last season we kind of show what is what, but after the Bayern game he has kind of fallen off quite a bit, even for England. He was very questionable, and so far this season as well he has been below his standards, and people are starting to bring up his 105 million price tag that we paid for him. Because last season when he was playing and how good he was doing for Arsenal in general and how good Arsenal were doing, nobody was bringing up his price tag whatsoever. But this season, everyone's bringing it up more or less. 105 million wasted. 105 million for Declan Rice, who is worth like 50 million at best. And based on his performances, to be honest, there's point to that argument, let's be real. So this also leaves quite a bit of options for Arsenal, because Declan Rice can play 6 and 8, Zubimendi can play 6 and 8, Merino can play 6 and 8, mostly 8, but also can play as a 6, and obviously Odegaard in that sense. So definitely Arteta, as he loves to do, if he stays there till next season, he could have a very, very viable midfield where he can just basically switch at least 6s and 8s however he wants without losing the quality. There's a possibility of that. So whether it's gonna happen or not remains to be seen. We'll have to wait and see, but definitely apparently Arsenal are still not discouraged about the fact that Merino rejected us, rejected Liverpool, and he actually might be on the cards. Obviously remains to be seen. We'll have to wait and see, but there's definitely some arguments for that to be made. And there's actual addition to that. Mikel Arteta wants to have a number of different options as a 6. Rice, Zubimendi, Merino, so there are 3 if we sign Zubimendi. He wants to be able to pick from a pure passer, another who is a physical, and one is who is press resistant. So how this actually would work? Pure passer, most likely it's gonna be, actually I don't know, Zubimendi or Rice. Physical, that's definitely Merino or Rice. Press resistant, Zubimendi most likely. With that, Arteta would be able to reconfigure his midfield for any given game. And to be honest, I kind of get the point of doing that. I kind of get the reasons why, because teams play very differently against us. But also, this could actually drive Arteta in many troubles, because he might play a certain player that fits the one style of play, but mid-game the other team can switch the tactics, and then again it all falls apart. It shouldn't, but it could. Obviously, we don't know. It's obviously from the scenario shoulda, woulda, coulda, but you never know what could happen. So having this very reconfigurative midfield, in terms of that we would have 3 8s that can play all of them as 6s, would actually work, but we would have to see how that works in real life. Because at the moment we have pretty much players that can play in every single goddamn position. Pretty much it feels like Trossard can play all across the front 3 plus 8. Merino plays as a, Rice plays as a 6, as an 8, mostly. Partey plays as a 6, as a right back. We have players that play almost every single position on the pitch. Arteta basically can switch, rotate, do what he wants. And as good as it sounds in theory, as good as it sounds on the paper, in real life, it's not that good at all. Because there are certain positions in the team where you need specialists in. And that's why certain teams are very, very successful when you have those. For example, Gabriel and Saliba are center backs. We will never see them as a right back, as a number 6, or whatever other position. Same goes, for example, for Odegaard. People may argue he's an 8, but he actually more is a 10 still, so we will never see him anywhere else. Bukayo Saka is a right winger, so we'll never see him anywhere else. But besides that, every single position is pretty much up for grabs, because Arteta can rotate the players that we have however he wants. For example, Man City, the biggest strength of Man City is the fact that they have center backs, but they have a proper wall in Rodri in front of him. Obviously not now with his ACL injury, but ultimately he's a 6. Everyone knows he's a 6, and whenever he plays, we all know that every opponent will be having a very long day in the attack. So as good as these options that Miguel Delaney is describing sound on paper, in these interviews, in theory, in real life it's a completely different story. Because in my opinion, you cannot have this mix and match type of situation when you basically play like, I don't know, what's mix and match game? I don't even know. You can put different types of players together and it still works. I don't think it would work for Arsenal. Given the way we play as well, we kind of need some certain players who are specifically good in specific things. And at the moment, we tend to play players that are not designed for the position. For example, in my opinion, reason why Trossard's form is not as good, and we have seen only one good game for him technically against PSG, is mostly because Trossard gets shifted across the pitch since Odegaard was injured. He plays left wing, he plays 10, he plays 8, sometimes he plays 9, and it's hard to gain consistent form when you get played all across the map in 4 different positions, when you have 6 games coming up, and in those 6 games you play 4 different positions. You cannot build up any consistency, any kind of form, and obviously you will get called out on that. That is the case for me, and yeah, that's why I get what Arteta could be trying to do here with trying to sign Zubimendi and having the midfield options of Rice, Zubimendi and Merino, but at the same time I would be a bit worried, because for me to be convinced about this, I would need to know how this would work realistically in real life. So that would be the biggest question for me, how that would translate from paper onto the pitch. That is the big thing. What tactics Arteta would deploy and how that would look overall altogether. And since we touched on Trossard, no Didi, and stuff like that, according to reports, obviously it's in the morning it was only according to Sports Beat, but during the day it came out from numerous reports as well, is the fact that Arsenal apparently are in talks with Leandro Trossard's representatives over a new deal for the 29-year-old. Now this, for me personally, in group chats and everything, was met with a very mixed response. Some people said they were good. If he can get a proper run of games, if he keeps coming off the bench and performing, that is great. It's good. Nobody should be scared. Nobody should be worried. He's a good squad player, and most of the time when he comes off the bench, he delivers and he has impact on the game, one way or another. But obviously when he starts and then if he gets shifted around, he has very inconsistent games. However, the thing is, just about 2 months ago, we got offered from Saudi for 32 million, and we turned it down. Now the big thing is it true? Well, it is true, sorry. The big thing is, we didn't accept that bid just because the transfer window was closed, or we couldn't replace him, or we actually wanted to keep him? That for me at the moment is the biggest question. Because the way Trossard plays is the way he plays. But when he scores goals, he doesn't celebrate. He's not showing as much passion as he used to. He tends on occasion, but mostly he doesn't. And he scored a certain goal. Saliba even had to kind of beg him and force him to do his signature celebration and everything. So I'm not sure what that means. Whether it's just some random feeling he had at the time not to celebrate, or maybe we are reading too much into it. But ultimately, if he can hit form, it's actually pretty darn good. If he can string on decent form, and it's coming off the bench to perform decently, to perform good, not to screw everything up, I'm all for it. It actually would be quite good for Arsenal, in my opinion. But the thing is though, keeping Leandro Trossard would raise me one big question. Does that mean we are not signing a left winger in the next summer transfer window? Because at the moment I don't see us signing a left winger in January. More likely it is going to happen in summer, if it's going to happen. Sorry. And that raises at the moment me the biggest question. If we re-sign Trossard, obviously Martinelli has a contract for some time, still till 2027 if I'm not mistaken. Does that mean we are not signing a left wing? That for me at the moment is the biggest question. Because if he decides to play, let's say, Trossard on right after this season, then we need a left wing. If he keeps him at the left wing, then we just need a backup for Saka. That is the big thing. And let's not forget, our left side in general at the moment is very screwed up. If last year our worry was the fact that we need just a proper left back or proper left eight, now currently even our left wing spot is screwed up. So our whole left side is under massive scrutiny whenever we play. And let's not forget that Arteta has tried to replace Martinelli on multiple occasions, 2-3 times already while he's been here. So does that mean he's not a big fan of him? And if he had the chance to sign Mudryk, if he actually signed Mudryk, does that mean we would have kept Martinelli would have held the bench, or he would have gotten sold? Who knows? Ultimately, at the end of the day, it worked out for Arsenal because we didn't get Mudryk, we got Trossard, and he actually hit a very decent form, and he was arguably our 12th man, and he was doing fantastically well. But again, there are some questions that need some answers, and I guess we'll have to wait and see. But ultimately, apparently, Arsenal are opening this door of contract extension for Leandro Trossard. Now, if we do this for a second, let's look on how big wages Leandro Trossard is at the moment, because that actually could indicate certain things and certain aspects of how much Arsenal rate him and how much Arsenal would want to keep him. So, Leandro Trossard. Now, you probably won't see the full one. I will only show you the yellow line. Basically, focus on that. Leandro Trossard at Arsenal at the moment is on 90 grand a week. His contract runs out in June 30th, 2026, so basically in season and a half. So Arsenal trying to extend his contract, I totally and utterly get it. But still, it still raises the question, if we re-sign him Will we get a left wing? Will Arteta go for a winger as well, besides a striker and besides a backup for Saka? That for me is the big question, because for me at the moment, if we re-sign Trossard, it means that Martinelli is staying, most likely because Martinelli is on 180 grand a week. His contract runs out in 2.5 years. And that means that we most likely we will sign a striker and we're going to sign a backup for Bukayo Saka. Of course, that's ultimately what we want. We want a proper bagsman up top. We want Saka to have a stunt double basically in a way, so he doesn't have to play every single game from bell to bell most of the time. Which now means that our left side is going to be the same one as we used to have. And that is a bit worrying because this season our left side has not been clicking properly whatsoever. And that again raises more questions than gives answers. So what's going to happen? If Arteta fixes it at the moment after this international break and we look on fire till the end of the season, then it's a bit different story. But currently, not good enough. Nowhere good enough. Many Arsenal fans, including myself, are done with Martinelli. They don't see him as an option anymore. Maybe off the bench, as a starter, no chance in hell whatsoever at the moment. So, again, re-signing Trossard, giving him a contract extension, again now raises more questions than gives answers in that regard. It makes you wonder and rethink Arsenal's whole transfer policy, transfer strategies for January, for summer, whatever Arsenal is going to try and cook up. So we will basically have to wait and see, but according to numerous reports, Arsenal are in talks with Leandro Trossard's representatives over a new deal. So let me know down in comments below, are you willing and are you okay? Big up Pepper in the chat, big up my guy. Are you okay with Arsenal trying and re-signing Leandro Trossard? Would that be a good thing, given that the moment that he's on 90,000 a week, which means if we extend his contract, most likely, it will be to 120 to 140, I would assume, thousand a week. And we're going to pay that for a bench player, most likely. That, for me, is the big question. Are we okay with that? One normal day of Arsenal, that's all I ask. Exactly, that is the thing. Today we're also going to talk about it, of course. But are you okay with Arsenal trying to re-sign Trossard on extend his deal? Because for me, it's a very, very vague thing at the moment. If he hits a proper run of form, if Arteta actually uses him in one spot, instead of basically playing him in a different position every single game, and he gets a good run of games and gets in a decent form, it actually will work. And him coming off the bench, it would be quite fantastic. But overall, if you look at it, our left wing, our left side is quite screwed up at the moment. And you can totally tell that Arteta is not pleased with Martinelli. He's not pleased with Trossard. He has tried to replace that left side in multiple occasions with Mudryk, with Nico Williams and other players. So that now raises the big questions. If we re-sign Trossard, for example, Martinelli has contract for 2.5 more years. That most likely means we're not going to sign a new left winger. This is the weird thing about this. It depends how much they're going to up his way. Yeah, I generally believe so. At the moment, he is on 90,000 a week, which is quite a lot, I'm not gonna lie. It most likely is gonna go up to like 120, 130, I would assume. And that is the big thing. We have almost every single player over 100 grand a week, which for me personally is way too much for about 35 to 50% of the squad we have at the moment. Way too much. And I think quite a bit of players in our team are quite overpaid still. So more questions than answers still in regard of obviously Leandro Trossard. The big thing about everything at the moment is some more transfer news. So here it is. I know it doesn't say Arsenal in this tweet, but bear with me here. Jonathan David as a secondary striker. Would you take him? Because he will be available as a free agent next summer. Would you take him? David's agent has informed potential suitors of his 5 million a year salary demands. Now, if we do quick maths, right? 5 million. If we divide that, that's basically 96 grand a week. 96,000 a week. 96,000 a week. For Jonathan David, many clubs including Juventus, Inter, Liverpool, Manchester United are interested. That's according to Tutto Sport. Now, should Arsenal be in conversation for this player? That for me is the big question. Because for me, as a backup striker, as a secondary striker, I think he would be a very, very good option. Very good option in my opinion, especially if we actually go and sign someone big for that striker spot. Because he's going to be unavailable as a free agent, so you will not have to pay big money for him. 5 million salary, but most likely also some agent deals and signing bonus and stuff like that. I would assume it will all come together to like what, 5 million a year. Let's just say 3 years, that's 15 million. Add some signing bonuses. Ultimately, it will be about 18 to 20 million overall to sign him on a 3-year deal as a free agent. Most likely. Most likely, don't get me wrong. I'm talking very hypotheticals. Because Juventus have Vlahovic. Do they actually need a striker? Inter have Lautaro. They have Thuram and other players. So why would they need a striker? Liverpool have Darwin Nunez, technically Cody Gakpo, but he plays on the wing at times. Obviously they need a striker, so maybe that was the case. United have what? Højlund. They have Zirkzee, but there are talks already for Zirkzee going back to Italy, so that has worked out well. So definitely Jonathan David for them also could potentially work long term. Now the question is, does Ruben Amorim want him there? That is also a big question for me. But for me the biggest question is, should Arsenal be in this conversation? Should Arsenal be in for him? That for me is the big thing. As a secondary striker, I wouldn't be against it. I'm not gonna lie. I genuinely wouldn't be against him being our second striker behind someone big we sign. Especially since it's a free signing, it shouldn't take too much money from us. That for me is the straight thing I'm kind of looking at and thinking about it. Because since he has joined Lille, he's bagging goals left, right and center. Almost every single game week, pretty much, he scores. And if he doesn't score one weekend, he scores double next weekend to basically make up for the previous weekend they have done. So that for me is the big thing. Would you be okay with signing Jonathan David as a secondary striker? Because for me, we are getting rid of Jesus. I would at least think so. So that means our striker spot is very wide open. And I think Arteta finally also, I would assume so, has realized that Havertz is net. Let's be real. Havertz is just a space invader and he's net. For me, the biggest thing is, will Arteta be here for the January summer transfer window? That also is a big thing, because depending on where we finish in the league, that will affect lots of things, of course. Zirkzee that Top Gunners were on their... Exactly, that's the same Zirkzee. The same Zirkzee that Top Gunners were on their knees for. Yep, the same Zirkzee. There are rumors and reports coming out that he most likely in January, at least potentially, could be going out on loan back to Italy already. So yeah, that is the interesting bit in all of this, to be honest. But for me, obviously, I know he didn't mention Arsenal, I just want to put it out there. Would you be okay with if we actually went for Jonathan David as a secondary striker? That for me is the big question, because 5 million a year, as we just saw, it's 96 million, of course, 96,000 a week, which is actually not that bad, given how much we overpay for, I would say, again, about 35 to 40% of the squad that do 100 times less than him, and how much we are paying Jesus, and he's doing basically nothing. I don't think it would be a bad deal in general. I genuinely don't believe that would be a bad deal. But of course, when there's Arsenal, there is drama, and or there are some bad news. And of course, today also didn't go by for Arsenal without some bad news. And of course, Ben White has undergone a minor operation to resolve an issue he's been dealing with for the last 6 weeks. And to be honest, when he plays, you kind of can see that he's not at full and best strength. He's carrying some sort of a knock. And ultimately, at the moment, yeah, he has had a surgery on that. And obviously, Arsenal also hope that the Calafiori will be back after international duty. Now, Eduardo Hahn also reported that, but there are some more news on this. Okay, not 18 months, sorry, that's the wrong one. Here is this one. Ben White, apparently to AFC Amden, or whatever that guy is, could be out for 8 weeks. So 2 months. Dude, in 2 months, I kid you not, it's January already, it's 2025. We just talked about yesterday, we did some copium and hopium and all that stuff, and we discussed that Arsenal from now, this point forward, after this international break, till the end of this calendar year, which is 10 games, if they want on 7 games in Premier League, 1 in Carabao Cup and 2 in Champions League, if they want to challenge for the title, if they want to have any hope to challenge for the title, they must win all 10 games. All 7 in Premier League, both in Champions League, and the 1 against Crystal Palace in Carabao Cup. So they are arguably in more advantageous position in January to go in transfer window and try and sign someone. Do I have trust that Arsenal will sign someone big in January? No, I don't. Do I have any trust that Arsenal will actually go in the window and sign someone? A tiny bit, this much. Maybe this much faith I have. So that is the big thing, which now means we have to pray that Timber doesn't get injured again. I hope his knees hold up and everything. Calafiori is back straight after international break. And that Tomiyasu is back as soon as possible. Or Tierney plays or someone like that. Or we are obviously gonna end up with what we did before. Thomas Partey at right back. Remember those days recently? We actually might resolve to that once again, especially if Ben White is out for 8 weeks. And I'm not gonna lie, as a right back, Thomas Partey kind of surprised me as well. We kind of laugh at him, including myself, kind of criticize him for the fact that he's playing in the midfield, he's very slow, he's like a granddad, people just blow past him and everything. But at the right back, he actually has been pretty decent. He actually has been pretty decent as a right back. Against Diaz, he did well, apart from the one time he got cooked. And overall, he was actually doing pretty darn well as a right back. That is the big thing. Luis Skelly at left back and Timber at right back. Yeah, that could work, but I think more likely it will be Kivior as a left back and Timber as a right back. The big thing is, in these instances, if Ben White is out for 8 weeks, right? 8 weeks is mid-January. You know what that means? Mid-January is the January international break also is over, by the way, after mid-January. It means that Arsenal will have to play Timber as a right back, most likely. And we will have to pray and hope he doesn't get injured. Because if he does get injured, Thomas Partey is going to go there. And it again will get extra peak for Arsenal. So it is a bit of a rough one. It genuinely is a bit of a rough one. Partey has been our best player this season, no cap. I would say the 2 best players for Arsenal this season has been Partey. Arguably, Partey has had a very slow start this season, in my opinion. He picked up the pace, I would say, mid-October. I would say. I would genuinely say that at the moment, player of the season for Arsenal has been Raya, and second place has been Partey. Thomas Partey and David Raya have been 2 of the best players for Arsenal so far this season. And that isn't that saying much? That when you're holding DM who partially plays right back and a goalkeeper are your players of the season. Isn't that telling much about our team? How awful we are in the attack and how vulnerable our defense are if those 2 in these discussions we put in a talk that for them to being our player of the season so far. Partey and Raya, exactly. It tells a lot, to be honest, about Arsenal, how we are playing, why we are where we are. It tells a lot about performances. Let's be real. And if Arsenal don't fix up, this also won't last. At some point, something has to give. Because imagine if Partey gets injured. That would be kind of nuts. Anyhow, we just talked about Real Sociedad's sporting director who randomly resigned, apparently, and his contract runs out in June 2025. And we talked about conspiracy theory from my end, the fact that he is from Sociedad, from Basques, where the same place where Mikel Arteta has played, in Real Sociedad, same region and everything. He was the reason why Real Sociedad kind of got lifted up with players like Isak, Merino, Zubimendi, Odegaard at the time. So he's definitely will be one of the sought after sporting directors in this window, once his contract runs out. And it kind of reeks of Arsenal a bit, I'm not gonna lie. But there are also some rumors, according to Di Marzio, that AS Monaco CEO Thiago Scuro is on the candidates Arsenal are monitoring to replace Edu Gaspar as sporting director next season. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know anything about this guy. Genuinely don't know anything. If you have some intel on him, how he has done, who he has signed, who he has scouted and everything, please let me know in the chat, because I genuinely have no goddamn clue. If the new sporting director is a Basque, then we know that. That's the thing, because I don't know if you were here or not, I talked about this. Where is it? Here it is. Roberto Olabe leaves sporting director role at Real Sociedad from June 2025. Decision made for Olabe, who's gonna be replaced by Eric Bretos. Olabe attracting interest from Premier League clubs. We all know where this is going, don't we? And for 2025, after excellent job at Real Sociedad, and it was also said here it is, that he led Real Sociedad's rise, plus player trading plus development on players like Isak, Odegaard. Remember when Odegaard was on loan from Real Madrid to Real Sociedad? He was there, he did that. Merino, who's at the moment at Arsenal, and of course Zubimendi as well. Now the big thing is, if Arsenal sign him, if Arsenal decide to go for Roberto Olabe, right? This actually might come to life. Where is it? Here it is. Arsenal are monitoring still Martin Zubimendi's situation, in the belief that they can prove the player's most viable option in the summer. Obviously, he denied Arsenal, he denied Liverpool in last summer transfer window because he wanted to stay for one more year at Real Sociedad. There are some rumors that in January, Manchester City could be going after Zubimendi. Whether it's gonna come to life or not remains to be seen. But here it is. After repeated appeals from Real Sociedad, Zubimendi opted to stay for at least one other season last summer. It's nevertheless believed that was conditioned that he would be allowed to leave for the right offer in the future. Obviously, he has some release clauses as a La Liga team players should have. Arsenal now may present that. They actually might be presented with an option. And to add to this, Arteta wants to have a number of different options as a number 6. He wants to be able to pick from a pure passer, Zubimendi, I would assume so, another who is physical, Merino or Rice, and someone who is press resistant, so Zubimendi again. With that, Arteta would be able to reconfigure his midfield for any given game. That is the thing that we talked about 25 minutes ago, and this is very interesting because all of a sudden, Real Sociedad sporting director leaves, it smells of Arsenal a bit, I'm not gonna lie, and the Zubimendi again instantly gets linked with Arsenal. I know this might be massive, I might be reading too much into this, but at the same time, there could be some truth behind that. Let's be real, let's be honest with ourselves. So let's wait and see how that develops, but it's very, very interesting, I'm not gonna lie. But if we go back to Thiago Scuro, he's one of the candidates for Arsenal. They're monitoring to replace Edu Gaspar, sporting director next season. Not gonna lie, as I said, I have no idea what this guy is about, what he has done, what he's doing and everything. Thiago Scuro, let's look at his profile. Thiago Scuro, manager profile. Oh, he's Brazilian. Oh, here we go, another Brazilian. Woohoo! He was chief executive officer. He was a sporting director at Red Bull 9 years ago. He was team manager at Cruzeiro. He was a sporting Red Bull CEO from January 16-17 to 18-19. Wasn't that the time when they had Haaland? Red Bull Salzburg. Wasn't that the time they had Haaland? Then he was at Bragantino as chief executive officer, and starting this year, so he has been at the job since July 1st. July 1st. He has been at the job since July 1st at Monaco. A director of professional football. He has been in that role for what? 1, 2, 3 months. 3 months in that role, and he becomes instantly a board member and a sporting director. It's very weird how quickly you can move up the ladder. So basically, at the moment, I have no idea what he's on about. It looks like he has basically, in 3 months, gone from director of football to CEO of Monaco. So what he actually has done? Thiago Scuro. What has he done? Thiago Scuro, let's look at signings. Thiago Scuro purchased players. Okay, here we go. This could be fun and painful at the same time. All clubs, individual selection. So he signed Robinho, not that Robinho you're thinking about, on loan. Lucas right back on loan, and Brian as a left back for Cruzeiro for 160k. So basically, he has signed nobody. He has signed absolutely nobody, and Arsenal are linked with him. He's been at the job for 3 months, and he's already a CEO, and why the hell are we in for him? So while we are here, let's look at this guy, because there are Premier League clubs are interested, since he's from Real Sociedad, Basque region. Mikel Arteta has played for Sociedad and is from Basque region. They will have Merino, Odegaard, maybe Zubimendi will come. Let's look at this. Let's look at signings Roberto Olabe has made. Okay, wrong Olabe. Roberto Olabe. Is that the guy? No, it's not. Roberto Olabe. It was under Olabe that Real Sociedad signed Japanese forward Takefusa Kubo. Yo, Pepper, it's your guy. Pepper, it's your guy, by the way. Under Olabe, Sociedad signed Takefusa Kubo, bro. Oh, you cannot see this. For fuck's sake. It's kinda cropped out. Let's do it this way. See? They signed Takefusa Kubo. It's your guy. They signed your guy under him. He signed Isak and other guys. So, definitely, that is actually kinda insane. That is actually kinda nuts. On a 5-year deal as well. Yeah. So he has signed Alexander Isak for 15 million from Borussia Dortmund. Sold him for 70 million. He signed Takefusa Kubo. He brought also midfielder Merino in San Sebastian in the summer of 2018 for 12 million, and they sold him for 38. Then sold him for 32. So in 5 years they made 20 million profit on him. And Arsenal looking at him as a replacement. Yo! Based on this, he actually knows some stuff he's working on. He actually knew some stuff that actually could be kind of fire. I just know Arsenal will fumble the appointment and hire the wrong guy. Yo, that is the thing. This guy actually can do something. The thing is though, at Sociedad it's a bit easier to perform because there's less pressure on them. At Arsenal, if you don't perform, you're instantly out. So that could be a bit of a challenge. But he signed Isak for 12 million, sold him for 72. 6 times the profit. 6 times the profit from 12 to 72. 60 million. That's ROI Arsenal should be getting at times. He signed Odegaard on loan. He signed, what's its face, because we just figured out Takefusa Kubo, Peppermint's favorite player in the world. He likes him more than Bukayo Saka and other players. And who else did he sign? We talked about this. Obviously Merino. He signed him from Borussia Dortmund and sold him as well to Arsenal. And Zubimendi as well. So Zubimendi actually, if we genuinely signed Roberto Olabe at Arsenal, I can see these Takefusa, for fuck's sake, Pepper, what have you done to me? I actually can see Zubimendi joining Arsenal. I genuinely can see Zubimendi then joining Arsenal. How wild is that? I actually can see Zubimendi joining Arsenal then, if we actually sign that guy. That is actually kinda nuts. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, funny. Now, Pepper, you were in the chat, if I'm not mistaken, for this as well. Remember about 2 weeks ago, we talked about the VAR decisions, how they're taking 65,000 years, and the games are dragging out for too long. Sometimes we all suggested that there could be some coaches challenges like an NBA or NHL. They should be playing pure time and everything. Apparently, FIFA is watching our streams because FIFA hopes to develop a new system called Football Video Support, FVS. This would allow coaches to challenge a refereeing decision they consider to be wrong. That's according to L'Equipe. Now, if it's a one-off challenge throughout the whole game or one per half, I'm all okay with that. Also, if you get things correct, it's all good. If you get it wrong, you lose it and something else happens. There should be some punishment for that as well, for wasting time. The thing is though, it will take quite extended period of time once again, and this means nothing, well, this video support football, because it will be done by some people, unless it's a separate entity, especially in Premier League, because it would be the biggest corruption ever if PGMOL refs are refereeing the game, PGMOL refs and everything are on the VAR covering each other's asses, and then you have FVS as well, and it's also reviewed by PGMOL. In Premier League, that would genuinely be an utter shit show. Most likely, other leagues would, if this comes to life, of course, it would be actually quite a good one. They would do it properly. For me, this works only if this FVS, this video support, football video support, is reviewed also by referees and everything, but it's genuinely reviewed by a completely separate entity from the league. Genuinely, that is the only way it could work for me. And how many you get, it would be very interesting. If you get it wrong, you lose the challenge. Maybe the coach gets a yellow card, so he doesn't act like nuts on the touchlines, and he doesn't risk getting a red card or something, because if Arteta does that, he definitely will get a red instantly, pretty much, or something like that. But why they're doing this? This is very interesting, because recently there have been lots of talks about very wrong decisions from the referees, and I think they're gonna try and crack down on it. But I think it actually could do more harm than good to the game, for the flow of the game. I'm already pissed off that I cannot celebrate a goal in football. If it's like a running behind the lines, I have to generally hold off the celebrations until a VAR checks it and confirms or denies the goal. It already has ruined me the actual joy of seeing a goal getting scored and actually not worrying about if something goes wrong. It has ruined the game on some level as well already. Of course, there are some good things from VAR, but in that instance it's very wrong. But this could also drag out the game for another 65 years, because VAR already checking some decisions take for about generally a century. In principle it works, but we cannot trust the people. Exactly, that's the thing. Because VAR, if you actually look at it, VAR works. If you like forget about Premier League and crap like that, if you look in other leagues, yes, there are some questionable decisions, but ultimately, sorry, my camera is doing a madness, VAR works. It gets the decisions, it gets rechecked and everything, especially if you have semi-automated offside systems and everything, it works like a charm. There's fouls, overturns and everything, right? It still works. The question is, who is running them? Because the people who run VAR, it's very dependent on who is doing it. Because in Premier League, it's a shit show. They cover each other's asses, their favoritism, there's corruption most likely, and all that stuff is going off the books and everything. In other leagues, it's actually working somewhat. Obviously, there are some talks about it not being clean and everything, but overall it works. When VR was piloted in 2017, I went on a commenting campaign against it. Most people laughed at me and called me a caveman, but they ain't laughing now. Exactly, that is the thing. At first, generally, VAR sounds like a very good thing. It sounds a very good thing because, let's be real, since human is refereeing the game, it's physically not possible in the speed the game gets played in the moment, in the action. Sometimes it's hard to notice certain aspects, certain things, certain intents, and some things that maybe 3 referees cannot catch, linesmen including the main referee. That's why you need VAR, to catch maybe a red card, to catch a certain offside maybe at times and everything. That's what you need. The thing is, if you don't use it correctly, it's hell on earth, and it genuinely does more harm than good. How comes Premier League pretty much is, it feels like they are living like 10 years behind football, because many leagues already, that's including Champions League, World Cups and everything, have semi-automated offside traps, offside systems, where they already show the 3D, what actually is offside when the AI draws the lines and everything, where it actually shows. And it happens legitimately in matter of seconds, not 10 minutes, when basically a Premier League VAR ref screenshots a picture, then puts it in Microsoft Paint, and then tries to draw the lines in Microsoft Paint, and it looks pixelated like Minecraft, and when you cannot make out anything pretty much what's happening there, who actually is offside or not. Because many times when you watch these things, if the for example the lawn is being cut like in lines, you can see how the line should be going, and you many times can see that VAR line is actually not in sync. It's not parallel to the actually lines the grass has been cut. You can see that. And that is also a big thing. Apparently in Premier League it's very hard to put the VAR cameras and everything in lines. You have to put them at certain positions on the pitch. You just cannot put them, for example, on a slide rail and it kind of follows the ball automatically and stuff like that. And that is also a big issue. That's why you need the semi-automated offside traps and everything. Offside systems. But yeah, Premier League generally feels like they're 10 years behind this. I was always against the principle of technology in sports, but once the tech is made, it's inevitable that they'll be used. Exactly, that is the thing. At some point it was bound to happen eventually. It was pretty much inevitable. I can see what it's trying to do, how it should be doing it, what's the reasoning behind it. I get all that. The thing is though, it's just idiots operating them half the time. That is the biggest issue. It's bad enough that you get wrong calls on the pitch. But when you get the wrong calls off the pitch as well, when you have time to look at 65 replays, then it's already a different issue. It's not any more human factor. It's genuine, well, idiocy or biasness. One of the two. Nothing more, nothing less in my opinion. I estimate that when they introduced VAR, around 80 to 85% of fans were in favor for it. To be honest, most likely, especially in Premier League, given that Premier League referees were awful already then. The thing is though, since introducing VAR, they have gotten much worse. It's getting even worse. With technically VAR should help, it should improve, it should support, but with VAR's implementing VAR in Premier League has made everything much worse. Let's be real. And I'm not talking about celebrating goals, it's generally talking about decisions. Because when you don't see a decision on the pitch, you make a call and you have a chance in VAR to go and look back at it. I get it. It should be the case on certain instances. But when everyone blatantly can see that, for example, when they get called a foul when it's not a foul, or when they doesn't get called, when they give a red when it's actually a yellow, when it's a penalty but it shouldn't be a penalty and stuff like that, and they basically cover each other, the people in VAR and the ref on the pitch, yeah, then the problem gets rough. Generally gets rough. The refereeing is a joke, let's be real, in Premier League especially. Yes, it's awful in other leagues as well, but Premier League, you could argue, is the worst. Let's be real. How comes in Champions League, very rarely you talk about refs? Yes, you talk about them every single season to some extent, but it never gets the PR traffic in good or bad limelight like Premier League does. None of the leagues do. Premier League is the one that genuinely gets embarrassing amounts of traffic due to awful decisions and VAR controversies on and off the pitch. Let's be real. That's actually quite embarrassing. I'm not gonna lie. That's genuinely, I'm not gonna lie. That is actually quite embarrassing in that regard. Oop, give me a sec. Let me have a sip. I don't think we talk about you Champions League refs as often as we don't play as many games in the tournament. I think it's a could be, generally could be. They are not great either. I'm not arguing that, But certain things in Champions League are much better. The semi-automated offside stuff in Champions League is phenomenal, let's be real. The VAR decisions don't take 65 hours. They have different referees, so they can't cover each other's asses. That is a plus. Yes, in Champions League, the referees make some wrong calls, wrong decisions. You see it on social media as well. But even in papers, in blogs, and then everywhere else, it just doesn't get the traction. Even though you could argue Champions League is there's an argument, biggest club competition in the world. I'm not including all these Club World Cups because it's just a farce pretty much and everything, but ultimately you could say the Champions League is the biggest club competition in the world. And it just doesn't get it should be getting a massive coverage, but it just doesn't, because yes, there are calls that are generally abysmal. It happens at times, but in Premier League, it's consistently. Like every single game week, you get 2, 3, 4 calls just genuinely that get insane outlash from fans, from coaches, from everyone. And the worst part is there's no consistency as well. I'm talking because, let's be real, Premier League rules, for example, to Champions League rules are a bit different. Should they be the same? You could make the argument for that as well. However, the fact that, for example, in Champions League, the same rule applies more often than not. It's the same rule, there's consistent calls on certain instances. In Premier League, basically how they rule the games is as the crow flies. It's generally as the crow flies. Because in Premier League, you can have the same situation, just different teams, copy-paste scenarios. If you have it 3 times, more often than not, you will get 3 different decisions. In Champions League, more often than not, you'll have 3 different games, same scenario 3 times, copy-paste, but more often than not, you will get the same decision. Let's be real. That's how it works, and it's actually kind of nuts if you think about it. The consistency is a big issue. Imagine if we played 38 games in the Champions League. We'd see potentially. Depends. It also depends. I still stand by the fact that even though Champions League have awful refereeing at times, teams get robbed at times, I still believe Premier League is worse. Genuinely. And I think for Champions League, the biggest thing is the fact that they get referees from everywhere. So you have different styles, different attitudes, different decisions, different ways they view the game, and different types of football that the referee allows to play. In Premier League, it's pretty much consistent in the same thing. Yeah, they have. Genuinely, I don't think Mike Glover is the youth. I don't think Mike Glover in the Champions League makes the worst errors. Well, let's be real. He's a Man United fan, isn't it? So it's a bit different, isn't it? In that regard. I know it's just random controversies and controversial opinions we are discussing, conspiracy theories and stuff like that, but it's weird. It's genuinely weird that there are you watch these games and it leaves a sour taste in your mouth, and many times after the games. That because more often than not, when I watch Champions League games, obviously I cannot watch like 15 games at the same time. I tend to watch about 4 or 5 at the same time. But more often than not, the referee calls and everything is quite spot on. Yes, there are some blimps here or there, but overall, I'm not counting the small fouls that don't get called, because it all depends on the referee, because how the refereeing style. I'm counting more the big decisions. And Champions League compared to Premier League, the big important decisions more often than not get right. In Premier League, it's always a big controversy. And let's be real, the handballs in Champions League differ from Premier League. And that's why you get the controversy, because there are some rules just don't coincide with each other. They're not the same. And that tends to kind of cause the biggest controversies, because every league has some certain rules that differ from the Champions League rules. And I think that is the biggest reason why it causes controversy. That is the big thing for me personally. I think that's why there are these decisions when you say teams get robbed, there are some wrong calls and everything. I think that is the case more often than not, in my opinion at least. But yeah, that is on that. But overall, It is what it is. But this Thiago Scuro guy, Arsenal considering it a move for tough negotiator. How is he a tough negotiator? That for me is the big thing. How is he? Arsenal have a decision to make when it comes blah blah blah. Arsenal search for a new sporting director and everything blah blah blah. No thanks. The current incumbent Edu, Forest, nobody cares. Rosicki, Mertesacker, but it's been reported that Arsenal won't sign an ex-player apparently. According to Di Marzio, Scuro has called Gunners eye for his reputation as a tough negotiator. Yo, that is something Arsenal actually need. I'm not gonna lie, that is something Arsenal need in transfer windows. Put their fist on the table, tell them what they are willing to pay, take it or leave it, and that's about it. No like testing the waters with a 15 million lower bid, making fools of ourselves and everything. Just, we need someone firm. One example cited is the deal for Yusuf Fofana to AC Milan, with Monaco playing hardball despite the midfielder only having 1 year on his contract. Could he, if we sign him, could he be the reason why Arsenal actually don't make dumb deals anymore? Yeah, I think Arteta doesn't want any more ex-players in power at the club. I generally don't believe so as well. Arteta has gotten the reins of the whole Arsenal club pretty much. I don't think he wants anyone challenging him in that regard. He doesn't want... Maybe Arteta finally wants a challenge. For me, the biggest thing is, when Arsenal go to sign a player, no team takes us seriously. Everyone considers us a joke. Could have been because of Edu, could have been because of our past, but that was the case. That is one of the narratives, I think, in the transfer windows through our sporting director, we actually need to change. That for me is the big thing. That for me is the big thing that needs to change the most. Because when City goes in to sign a player, other teams pretty much shaking in their boots instantly because they know they can offer the money they need. They have their evaluation of the player. They're not gonna go a cent over. They're gonna put an offer on the table, and it's pretty much take it or leave it. And if they need to sell the player, more often than not, they will take it. There is a respect to a certain level. When Arsenal go to sign a player, there's no respect towards us. That's what at least it looks like from our perspective. Now, Monaco had a busy time in the transfer market in the last 2 summers, selling the likes of Fofana, Disasi, while adding former Arsenal forward Florian Balogun, among others. Their award last season was a 2nd place finish in League 1, while they are flying high in the league. Champions League this term, obviously. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta was asked about Edu, nobody cares. Now the thing is, there are 2 potential directors we were talking about today. Would you take any of those at Arsenal? The Real Sociedad one that just resigned, or this guy from Monaco? Would you be interested in any of those? Because personally, I know nothing about them. I'm not gonna lie. So maybe if someone knows, if someone is maybe a Monaco fan is watching, Real Sociedad fan is watching, can you give me a bit of an insight on those guys? Give me a bit of an insight. That would be freaking fantastic. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I think on that note, we're gonna end it here today, guys. I'm hella tired. I want to go to bed. I didn't sleep at all pretty much last night. Was up all night. It's generally killing me at the moment. But yeah, I think for me, for you today, that will be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. You have been freaking fantastic. Big up Pepper in the chat for discussions, opinions, some laughs in terms of Takefusa Kubo, for fuck's sake, and all that stuff. You all have been fantastic. So if you could do me a favor, if you're still here, smash thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell. If you're watching this as a playback, leave down a comment below. Take care, have a great evening, and see you all tomorrow. Peace.